as long as you are okay with accepting the fact that you are a monster. Hello everyone, thank you for coming or for coming back. Today I am very excited to give you all my donut recipe. So all the ingredients and measurements are listed below, so check that out if you're going to make these, and if we are all ready, we can get started. So this is a yeasted donut, so as with any yeasted dough, we are going to start by blooming our yeast. So you're going to need some milk that is just slightly warmed, and to this you're going to add a pinch of the sugar as well as all of our yeast. Go ahead, give that a quick little stir, and then we're going to leave that to bloom for about 5 minutes. When you come back 5 minutes later, it should be nice and bubbly and it should smell like fresh bread. And that's how we know that it is ready to go. So we're going to pour that into our mixing bowl. As well, we are going to add our butter, eggs, salt, vanilla, and flour. We're going to give that a nice little mix by hand, and once it is combined enough, we can turn it out onto our surface and start kneading. You want to knead this until it is nice and smooth, so go for about 5 to 10 minutes. Once it is a nice smooth dough, you can put it into an oiled bowl. Here I just used the same bowl that I had mixed my dough in. Give it a nice little coat with oil and then cover it up and leave it to rise in a warm place for an hour and a half to 2 hours, or until it is doubled in size. An hour or two later, we can cut out our donuts. So we are going to turn our risen dough out onto a floured surface and roll it out until it is about 3/4 of an inch thick. We don't want this to be too thick when we cut it out because they are going to rise a little bit more a second time. So using one large and one small cutter, you can go ahead and cut out your donuts. Here I have a 4-inch round cutter as well as a large piping tip that I can use to cut out the donut centers. I'm also leaving a few donuts with the center still in so that I can make them into filled donuts. Now, unfortunately, this dough doesn't do very well with re-rolling, so you want to be really careful when you're cutting out your donuts to make them as close together as possible so you can get the most that you can out of this dough. As well, with my scraps, I like to cut out some extra little donut holes that I can still fry. If you want to minimize or even try and eliminate the scraps, one thing that you can do is still fry them up. They will fry up just fine and they'll still taste like donuts. They might cook a little bit unevenly if some parts are skinnier, but you can still eat them. Another option is to go ahead and make square donuts, as long as you are okay with accepting the fact that you are a monster. Once all your donuts are cut, you can go ahead and cover them up with plastic wrap or a damp towel, or as I'm doing, an inverted tray, and leave them to rise in a warm place for another 45 minutes to an hour. While these are rising, I am going to make a quick little batch of pastry cream for some of my filled donuts. Now for this, in a pot, we are going to mix together some milk and vanilla. Ideally, you'd use vanilla bean here, but I didn't have any vanilla bean, so I just went with some vanilla extract. And then in a small bowl, you're going to whisk together some sugar and cornstarch, and then add an egg yolk and whisk it together until it is nice and smooth. Now, by this time, your milk should have come to a nice simmer, and you can slowly stream it into your egg mixture. After that, you're going to go ahead and put it all back on the heat, scraping out the bowl, and you're going to whisk it again on heat until it is thickened. Now you're going to transfer it back into a bowl. You're going to cover it with plastic wrap directly touching the surface so it doesn't form a skin, and put it in the fridge to cool. Now, if this was a larger amount of pastry cream, then I would say that you should put this in an ice bath to cool it before you wrap it and put it in the fridge, but this is such a small amount of pastry cream that it should cool down in the fridge fairly quickly. Okay, back to our donuts. We are going to check if they are ready using the poke test. So what you want to do is just lightly poke the top of one of your donuts and watch to see how it springs back. Now, if your fingerprint disappears completely, it springs back all the way, then your donuts are still rising and you need to leave them and check it again in another 10 to 15 minutes. What you want to see is that your finger poke comes back, but it still leaves a little bit of an indent where you can see it, and this is how you'll know that your donuts are risen enough that you can fry them. Now to fry, we are going to fill a heavy bottomed pot up with 3 to 4 inches of oil and bring it to 350 degrees, checking with a thermometer. Alternately, you can set up your deep fryer. And yes, mine is set up outside, and yes, it was very cold out. So these donuts are going to fry for about a minute per side, flipping once during cooking, and then once they are a nice brown color, you can go ahead and take them out and let them drain on a wire rack. Repeat this with all of your donuts as well as your donut holes. Now to decorate, starting with the filled donuts, what you're going to do is take a skewer, poke a hole in the side of the donut, and just sort of twist it and turn it so that you can make a nice little pocket for your filling to go in. Here I am filling with some of the cooled pastry cream that we made earlier, as well as some nice blueberry jam. With my pastry cream donuts, I am dipping them in a nice little cinnamon sugar mixture to coat, and with the jam-filled donuts, I am dusting them with some nice powdered sugar. Now the last thing we need to do is make the glaze for the donuts that have holes. Now I don't even really use a recipe for this, I just sort of eyeball it. I like to start with a bowl of powdered sugar, add a splash of vanilla, and then slowly add enough milk that you can reach a drizzling consistency. Then I'm going to go ahead and take half of this glaze, put it in another bowl, and add some cocoa plus a little more milk to make a chocolate version of the same glaze. Now the donuts with the holes can be dipped into this glaze, let a little bit of it drip off before you turn it over, put it on a tray, and sprinkle it with a nice little spattering of sprinkles while the glaze is still wet. Now I like to decorate my donut holes last because what I do with them is just put them all into the bowl of icing and give it a nice little stir around to coat, and then I take them out and set them on my parchment tray, and I drizzle them with the other flavor and then add a few little sprinkles and let them sit there until they are nice and set so I can move them. And here is our nice little arrangement of beautiful homemade donuts. These are so pretty, it is so easy to decorate them however you want them to look. And the best part about homemade donuts is that when making filled donuts, you can add as much cream or as much jam as you can possibly get that donut to fill. I know how disappointing it is to go to a store and get a filled donut, then open it up and there's like no filling in it. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you make these. I hope you enjoy, and I'll see you next time.